To our listeners, you're welcome to another exciting and insightful edition of Caring Heart on Armed Forces Radio, your favorite disability talk show, coming to you from Armed Forces Radio at Mogadishu Cantonment in Abuja. I'm your host, Awo Christian Obiora, and today we'll be looking at a very interesting topic. The topic we'll be looking at today is the key measures to addressing inaccessible family planning services for persons with disabilities. Now we also all know that family planning is a very fundamental aspect of health and well-being, but do you know that persons with disabilities often face unique and overlooked barriers when it comes to accessing these services? So that's exactly what we'll be looking at today. And we will look at how we'll break these barriers to ensure that everyone, regardless of their abilities, have access to family planning services. To look into this very important conversation, we are privileged to have a very distinguished guest with us today. He's no other person than Dr. Ejike. Dr. Ejike is the former director, the country director of IPAS, an international reproductive health organization, and the chairman, management committee, Association for the Advancement of Family Planning in Nigeria, CSO focal point for Nigeria, and the president, Dr. Ejike Community Development Foundation. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Caring Heart.
Yes.
So, Doctor happens to be my alma mater. He was my the president, University of Nigeria Alumni Association, Abuja branch. So he has been somebody that is so close to me, who actually mentored me. I think Doctor may not remember, but he's the first person that actually encouraged me and gave me an award to encourage what I'm doing for persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
I still remember that, Doctor.
Thank you.
And thank you for encouraging me.
Yes.
Doctor, in the last year, towards December, that's early December, you led your committee to organize the 8th Nigerian Family Planning Conference. And in that conference, the inclusion of persons with disabilities was a top-notch. So the persons with disabilities were actually, there was a pre-conference on persons with disabilities, and during the conference, they still have some sections on persons with disabilities. So I want to know what actually informed all that idea behind this particular conference.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for having me. Every 2 years since the inception of Association for the Advancement of Family Planning as an organization, we have a conference on family planning as biannual. And the reason is to bring together all stakeholders who have anything to do with family planning onto one platform for various types of conversations. And then what we normally do is to look at current issues, what is new, and then use that to plan for the future. And at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to have a conversation around what have you been doing, how successful are we, and what are the barriers. And then that's, in summary, what we normally do to have this conversation. And the family AFP is made up of about 50 international organizations, local CSOs that have anything to do with family planning in the country, both in advocacy, service delivery, demand generation, and then also looking at financing family planning, both civil society organizations, international development partners, and donors. And now we're bringing in the private sector. Wema Bank featured very, very largely. In fact, the consortium of private sector alliances have made a pledge of $4 million between now and 2030 to support family planning commodities purchase. So that's what normally brings it to this particular year. We focused on sector-wide approach based on the initiative of the government. Now they want to look at health in a sector-wide approach, bring all these things and then do it under 4 pillars. So that's what we decided to do too, regardless of the fact that we had to look at what has been going on. And then recently the NDHS came out and showed there was a marginal improvement in our CPR, that is contraceptive prevalence rates, modern methods. And then also looked at there was also an increase. You might look at it from the positive or negative side. There is an increase in unmet need from 19 to 21%. So there's a marginal increase in the number of this, and also there's a slight increase also in fertility rates based on the new NDHS. So these are the kinds of conversations that came up in terms of using data. And then in this particular conference, for the first time, we created a sub-committee on DEIs, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion, to make sure people with disability were given the pride of place to be on the table during the conversation. In fact, Ejike Pele was the chair of the DEI, and then we were very delighted that he was there and we introduced him to the world. Because this particular conference wasn't just a Nigerian conference, it was a global conference. More than 15 donors who have been giving resources to Nigeria in the maternal, born and adolescent healthcare sector. We are all there. So it was a very, very robust and wonderful conversation over a 5-day period.
So within that conference, what are some of the issues raised around persons with disabilities? You know, but going by your experience, you've been able to identify some of the barriers that persons with disabilities are facing when it comes to accessing family planning services. So what are the burning issues during the pre-conference on persons with disabilities and even other sections within the conference that actually focuses on persons with disabilities? What are the issues that will say that these are the barriers that persons with disabilities are facing when it comes to accessing these services?
Yes, there are 2 major barriers. One is information dissemination to people with disabilities, and then also access, like you correctly said, access. And let me break it down the way we looked at it. One of the hindrances in communication, somebody who has a hearing disability, even if you are doing a radio show, that person will not be able to hear what you're saying. And then if also somebody has a vision disability too, the person will be able to see what you're showing on television. And that's why from the word go, even to make sure that whatever your type of disability is, you'll be able to even access to register for the conference. So we made sure that there was some this thing that was put in the conference website that made it possible for people who had hearing impairments that they can touch some buttons and it will enhance in fact, not that it will enhance, then there will be some listening, speaking to the person about the electrons. And for people who had also visual impairment, the distance automatically enlarged the distance. That's starting from the conference. And then, of course, like I said, we had a subcommittee. In the main conference, there was a lot of conversations across board based on this thing. It's not just enough to say there are family planning services. Access is a very major thing. If there is a hospital, there are no ramps.
Yeah.
The person with physical disability will not be able to, person is in his or her wheelchair, means that the person will not be able to have access. Even if you have somebody coming and there's 2 or 3 or 4, will you carry the person up?
Yeah.
So that's why those are the things that were also highlighted. And then, in fact, there are physical, and then there are person-to-person disability. Physical, I just mentioned one of them. The other areas that people talked about was also, if the people providing services do not have sign language people for people who are completely hearing impaired. If there's no sign language person in that facility, that means that person is also denied of services. These are some of the things that came up. And then we're looking at the conference reports, and then we're also, during the post-conference LOC meeting, which we had about a week and a half ago, we also decided we're going to form an advocacy team. In that advocacy team, we'll make sure that at least one person with disability is part of it, so that it's not just going to say it anywhere we're going, there'll be visibility, so that it keeps going into the consciousness of the minds of people. And that's why even the venue of the conference, we also made it intentionally known to the Continental Hotel that you must make your place user-friendly.
Yeah.
So, and that happened. So people with disability were able to access.
The restroom everywhere.
Everywhere was, it was
Very
a
accessible.
deliberate this thing that we did, so that we can start bringing the consciousness of that into people's minds. So the conference was a good start. And then the important thing is that we have decided, like I said, develop an advocacy push. And once we finished our plan, we need to start going out, even to the National Assembly, and then to the executive arm of government. There's been a lot of acts that has been passed
Yeah.
and signed on by...
And even some policies of government.
So we need
health.
to make sure we go to the executive to see that and seek that those are enabled, so that people will be able to have everything that they need. We had also a media roundtable last week on the outcome of the conference. And then if you look at the communique, you can see that there are also, it was also mentioned in the communique, looking at key populations, and people with disabilities part of the key populations, that people must make sure that they focus on that. And we're going to have a major stakeholders meeting in the next 1 or 2 months, and we are waiting for the NDHS to come out. Once it's out, it will form the basis of the conversation we're going to have at the stakeholders meeting, including the outcome of the conference, where we'll have a major stakeholders meeting to say, okay, these are the things that came out, these are the resolutions passed during the communique, during the conference in the communique, and these are the key things we need to focus on. So we are going to make sure that persons with disability will also be properly represented, so that their voices can be heard.
All right. When you are talking about the barriers, that this particular one, because when we are having our conversation with a lot of persons with disabilities, they always talk about it, especially the deaf women and other, the blind and the deaf women as well, and even persons with physical disabilities. The societal stigma, especially on the side of healthcare providers, they continue to talk about it, because sometimes people look at them as those who do not even need these services, because they will keep telling them, what business do you even have to get pregnant, to talk of even having accessing some of these services? So those misconceptions. So I want to know if it's part of what your committee will also be addressing going forward.
Yes, remember that I took my time to look at the different levels where the denial of services could happen. One of that is information when you do the demand generation, because family planning, you have to, because of the low CPR, there's a lot of demand generation work going on around the country. Like I said, that is also going to be addressed. The other one is the physical access, and then the last one is what you have just said now. It's not enough to say that somebody is enabled in terms of looking at people with disabilities. You also have to give, should I say, the technical skills and abilities. And part of that, as far as I'm concerned, part of that technical skills and abilities is also doing a proper orientation, that the people will be inclusive That's why inclusivity comes in the DEI. So the people will be inclusive and know that somebody with disability doesn't mean the person doesn't have the full rights of a human being. So it's part of the conversation. And the key thing is that we intend to probably promote it in a way that it will be reward based. We're not saying we want people to now target only people with disability, but it's a way to bring consciousness of the people on the table. And then after some time, when people get used to it, you don't have to be doing those things. For now, it's very low. Should I say the awareness is very low.
Yeah.
There are so many areas that are provided by us. And that's why by having that committee, we need to be visiting. And one of the conversations we're already having in our office is there's a possibility we might leave the DAI subcommittee live instead of let it end with the conference, so that we'll bring conscious, deliberate, and intentional efforts towards bringing that up. It's like doing, I'll give you an example. If you are doing abortion-related advocacy, you have to really dig into the consciousness of the people, and then use attitudinal transformational skills. There's this thing I used to call the four-corner attitude transformational practice or program. By the time people go through it, they now know that you don't have to look at an abortion as the woman made is the culprit.
Yeah.
Society is also part of it. And that's why we're investing so much in family planning. If a woman gets pregnant when she doesn't want, that means she was not properly counseled on how to use preventive approaches to get pregnant. Because the desire for sex is there. The age of sexual debut in Nigeria is about 15 years. So whether you like it or not, the young people are already doing it. So you need to make sure that in or outside of marriage, people can only get pregnant they want to really keep the pregnancy. So the same thing that we have done to bring that consciousness to Nigerians, the same way we are going to bring the consciousness for people with disabilities in terms of family planning uptake.
Thank you very much, Doc. Just like the way we do it on this program is audience participatory. You can call in to be part of the program. You can call in to ask your question. We actually have an expert here, and I know that a lot of persons with disabilities out there are listening to me now. They are listening to this program. If you have any question to ask, or you have any contribution to make, and even other people working in the health sector and also working with persons with disabilities, you can call us on 070-7242-6258, 070-7242-6258. So just call us, or you can also send an SMS. We'll read your SMS out and react to your question. So we are waiting for your calls. Doc, it's just like we are honored to actually have you, and honestly I have to ask you this, because a lot of persons with disabilities out there have been itching to know. Many of them were like, we are not being carried along. So I just want you to guide, especially women with disabilities. You've worked with a lot of women with disabilities when you were when you were with iPads. So I remember the work you did with deaf women. So, but a lot of them have given hope. So they are no longer getting closer to the hospital. So I just want you to talk to them now, for them to actually see that there are still ways that they can access the hospital and access every other services within the hospital.
Yes, what I can tell them is that occasionally, when you keep quiet, people will ignore you. But all the same, the way you raise your voice also can cause antagonism. I know it can be very frustrating, But you can make your case in a place, and you use subtle advocacy means, but become very insistent, and then what I always tell people, if you go to any place you know you're not getting what you want, ask for the head of the organization. You know, when you say I want to see the supervisor, most often than not, people who feel that the whole thing starts and ends with them, they get a little flustered and they start doing the right thing. And I always tell people, hold your ground. If you go to any place, somebody wants to bypass you, refuse. It's your right, your inalienable right to be seen and taken care of when you show up. And then don't be shy, but I always say don't be overtly rude or aggressive. Otherwise, people can now use one this thing and paint you. I don't mind them. They're always very aggressive.
Aggressive, yes.
So, but they don't know that it's out of frustration, years of frustration, that push people to behave that way. So, maintain your cool, and then also make sure that you get the right attention towards you. But it's not easy. It's easier said than done. But at the same time, we have to continue to try. For me, like I said, immediately we created that DEI subcommittee the first time in our conference. We knew that it will now be part of our programmatic rollouts at AFP. And then we're also telling our colleagues to do the same. For me, that I have my own foundation too, Dr. Ejike Community Development Foundation. We're developing a 5 million women database that will cut across.
That would have been my next question.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about that foundation and what we're expecting from the foundation.
Yes, so we're going to cut across financial health for the women, reproductive health and rights services, and then also
Yeah. Hello.
Okay.
Wow. That's the caller. Can continue, sir.
Yes, we're going to also make it possible for health services through insurance, and then also from the things we'll be doing with the women, make sure they raise their own capital, have access to the capital market, even if they want to, and even real estate. So it's going to be a very big thing. We're looking forward to maybe by the middle of this month, launch it big in Abuja here. We've already started last year or two, last year, in fact, within last 1 year, we were able to make sure that there are almost 1,400 women had access to free cervical cancer screening. So we also focus on preventive healthcare. And then the foundation has also made
Let's see if we can give this person a minute to... Hello? Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your name and where you're calling
God
from?
bless you, sir.
Okay.
I'm calling from the local government of our state.
And what is your name?
My name is Danladi Peter.
Okay, Danladi. Go on.
Yes, sir. I really like the program that you people are doing. And also by make people understand that the disability, there's not ability in disability and there's no disability in ability. But I have question is that I don't know why, because I have been witnessing it. Once a visual impaired person has a female, when they discover that a female visual impaired person conceived, then people began to ask that how can a visual impaired person that have nothing seen, how can she conceive? Who is going to take care of? That's number one. Then secondly, they will say that this person is a blind person. How is she make it by making that decision? It didn't happen that okay, when the person notified that all the part of his body organs no longer functioning.
It's okay, Danladi.
I want people to take people from this kind of area. Nobody pray for
We've gotten your question. Okay, it's still part of what we have addressed before.
what did
that issue of that if a blind person, a female blind person conceive, they will be looking at her as if, what business does she have getting pregnant?
Yes.
So it's something that
I think we've addressed that.
we have addressed that.
Yes.
So I think because we don't really have time any longer, just your final thoughts.
Yes, my final thoughts is that once you regard a fellow human being nicely and think that the person has the also the right to access all services and also to be given the opportunities, so also that will be done for people with disabilities. And then for me, I think every Nigerian should make an intentional and deliberate effort to look out for that. Occasionally, people now feel that it's part of the landscape. And I'll give you a simple example. Years ago, when I resigned from IPAS and I said I was going to go into the political field, to be able to get into the parliament, to be part of change things in the country.
I don't really have time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I found out that there were people who were supposedly mad, walking around, nobody doing anything.
Okay.
Until I drew their attention and started a project on it. So important thing is for everybody to be intentional and look out and see what you can do to support and help.
All right, Doc, we'll see what to have you come back another time to give more insights on this particular topic because of your wealth of experience when it comes to issues of persons with disabilities and women. So we hope to have you back, sir.
Thank you.
So to our listeners, thank you for being there. Thank you for tuning to Caring Heart on Armed Forces Radio. So just like I keep saying, let's continue to advocate for an inclusive society where no one will be left behind. Stay tuned for more conversation on important issues affecting persons with disabilities. So till next time, I remain Comrade Chris Abu, signing off now. Bye.